Ladies and gentlemen and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. My name is Rotten Deadite, and with me today is...
I'm James, also known as Aramithius.
Singular is. And
Yes.
today we are covering Truth in Sequence Volume 4 in the fifth part of our series. And there's some... I'm literally just reading off of James's notes here. So let's see, what did we cover in 3?
In 3, it was sort of ideas
Daedra.
about the Daedra.
Yes.
It was throwing shade on the Daedra. We've now got lots of questions about doubt, which we can sort of dig into. Volume 5 is we've done throwing shade on the Daedra, and now let's throw shade on the Dwemer. Volume 4 is sort of a weird in the middle one, which is not throwing shade on anyone, really.
This is the whole, yeah. Well, okay, exactly. My God once sucked a filling out of Jack Nicholson's head. Oh, yeah? Well, my God can open a manhole cover with algebra. Well, my God can fold dogs. Oh, yeah? Well, all right, anyway. That's nothing.
No.
So, now I speak to you of Sotha Sil's silence. Yeah, thank you. The children of Ash sometimes ask, that's the, almost said Dwemer, that's the Dark Elves, the Dunmer.
Yes.
The children of Ash sometimes ask, where is our clockwork god? Why does only the Torbillion speak his truth in mortal sequence? So, okay, so speaking truth in mortal sequence as opposed to truth all in one go, I suppose.
Yes. It's a reference back to what was done earlier, the fact that the mortal mind cannot comprehend the ordered unsequence. So this is simply putting it in ways that you understand. It's the idea of why doesn't God just fix everything now? Why do we have to put up with evil?
Yeah,
and
that's a long answer.
Yeah. There's whole branches of philosophy on that. Well, theology is probably a better term for it, because the problem of evil isn't really philosophy as such.
No. It can get there, though.
Yeah.
They ask in hushed tones with brows creased by fear, do not flee from such questions, child of the Tribunal. These are the little blasphemies that lead to wisdom, the faultless flame that turns ignorance into steam. Okay. So there's a thought. Heat, we don't really have a universal metaphor for heat or fire. My God is a folded dog.
Testing.
My God once sold a set of steak knives to Sting.
Testing is one of the things that's there, particularly in Paul's Apostles. The idea of trials will purify your faith, and it will become purer than gold refined by fire. Those sorts of things and things like fire being a thing about trials and temptations and all the things you have to pass through in order to become something better. It's sort of taking that sort of a metaphor is how I'm seeing it.
But here's my question. First off, why are we talking about steam and clockwork? Steam is more of a Dwemer thing.
Yep.
And secondly, the idea of steam being heated water would then, one would say, well, okay, if water is memory or experience and steam is work, then heat would have to be will.
Yes.
Which holds up extremely well in a metaphor, just not the way that's being used here.
No. And
fire is also a good proper metaphor for knowledge. That is actually true too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Knowledge and experience.
The secret fire of alchemy and those sorts of things. But it is interesting though, because I don't think do we have anything that points to Sotha Sil using steam as such? Because steam as used to boil water is something that's absolutely happened, but steam used to power things is not something that's that huge. If we're going to take real world analogies, we know that the Greeks had some forms of steam power, but they didn't really use it for much at all. So
yeah, I was about to say I recalled one of Sotha Sil's constructs emitting steam, but No, I'm wrong about that. That was Dwemer.
Yeah.
Might have to go back and play the Tribunal expansion again to get a look at some of those mobs.
Yeah.
Anyway, for the mainspring Everwound is the father of curiosity, and curiosity is the joyful destroyer. Interesting.
Yes.
Maybe everything runs off him originally since he's infinitely wound.
I have the father of curiosity. Yes, that's the infinitely wound thing is the unmoved mover.
Yeah.
Idea. So he is the origin point of everything, because he doesn't need anything to keep him going, and that sort of thing. But curiosity being the joyful destroyer. Now, I didn't press this at the time, but I remember when I interviewed Tuttle about this, he talked about Nietzsche being the joyful destroyer, which is, I don't know, that kind of leads me down kind of Tyler Durden-y type ends, more than anything else, because I don't remember that much about Nietzsche at this point, if I'm honest. But the idea of kind of tearing something down so that new things can be rebuilt and doing it deliberately is sort of the idea. Curiosity being the joyful destroyer is the idea of, well, what's beyond that hill, and all of a sudden you realize that that hill isn't actually the top of the world, because you can see that there's a mountain beyond it, and those sorts of things. It destroys your previous understandings. It expands your knowledge by allowing you to see what went before is not the case.
Yeah.
Which is sort of why doubt and so on is being valorized here. That if you're kind of allowed to question, then you can go on and see what the greater truth is. If you're asking, well, why is that the way it is? Then you can understand something closer to truth, which is an interesting notion for a cult religion, as far as I'm concerned. Because, I mean, the way that it's portrayed, at least in modern secular culture, is that faith is a point where truth stops at a certain point, but that's on the secular presupposition that faith is wrong. That if you are convinced that your God is right, then ask as many questions as you like. Eventually, it will lead back to the truth that is your God.
Right.
That's sort of what this is aiming at, and this is why it's sort of encouraged, because, and it also kind of lends to the idea of the Clockwork Apostles being a bit more of a mystery cult, as far as I'm concerned. It's not something that where everyone's going to get there. You need to be a seventh level initiate, a bronze cog or whatever, before you can work it out. You need to be able to doubt in a certain way, to a certain degree, before you advance up. Is at least my perspective.
And also, wouldn't it be a mystery cult? It's the fucking mystery god, you know?
Yeah.
It just makes sense, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I kind of like the idea of Sotha Sil having, like, levels of initiates, you know? like, you know, having to get, like, you know, all your body thetans cleansed off or some... Yeah, Cog Xenu. Thank you, Felix. Beat me to it. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah. Whether that's actually the case or not, I don't know. But I sort of get the feeling that this might have been a sort of cargo cult that emerged because Sotha Sil doesn't really bother to answer anyone's questions. So they just think there must be an answer in here somewhere.
He's not being administrative at all. He's just working, and then, like, the next thing he knows, he looks up and it's like there's a cult around him, and he's like, okay, and he goes back to work, and he looks up again at their churches, and he's like, all right.
Yeah, and it's sort of the idea of our God cannot not answer us. Our God loves us too much, so we need to interpret an answer out of what has been given.
Yeah,
and only the people that can build
we can only trust the kind of people who can correctly interpret him. And Sotha Sil's like, who are they then? And they're like, well, these people have correctly interpreted your stuff. And he looks at just, no, Christ, no, they haven't. No, what? No.
Yeah.
People need to get my attention more often. And then he turns around and hides again.
Yeah, although unless he would actually care.
Yeah, he may not even give a shit.
Yeah, it's, you would have done that anyway. Just don't bother me.
I'm way too autistic to deal with this cult right now.
Yeah.
Sotha's all stimming, while they're.
Oh dear.
So, only in sundering can things be made whole. Only the disassembled engine can be scrubbed and made clean. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yes.
So, smash the old machines, topple your mind's idols, and from wreckage, assemble new truths, flawless and watertight. Do you see now, child of the Tribunal? It is the silence of Sotha Sil that gives birth to the intrepid mind. Oh, how fortunate then.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that convenient? No,
Yes.
It's a good thing that he doesn't tell us anything. It means that we have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Sure. Knowledge must be found, and to find a thing, it must be hidden. Yep, a lesson stolen is learned faster than a lesson taught.
Mm-hmm.
It is not enough to be told. The whir of the machine is as silence to the one who lives within it. The whir of the machine is as silence to the one... See, that... Okay, all right. A turbine ever oiled does not know the lack of oil, nor does not know the purpose of oil, and so it is with truth. Okay. Yes. So... The whir of the machine is as silence to the one who lives within it is kind of that's a troublesome metaphor for me because it brings up ideas of like, well, you can't hear the machine because you've been hearing it your whole life and you're deaf to it. Yep. Like you become deaf to it. You're numb, That's not a good thing in any religion or metaphysical practice I'm aware of. Like, almost all of them try to encourage a state of everything needs to seem to be new to you, You have to see the world around you and you can't be numb to anything.
Well, that's part of the point. They're not saying that this is a good thing. This is the sort of thing of a fish doesn't understand what water is sort of thing, and the whole idea of you can't understand truth without having been exposed to lies.
Right.
Sort of thing. That's what it's getting at. And a turbine ever oiled does not know the lack of oil. Doesn't know what oil is for.
Yeah.
And so if you know nothing but truth, you don't know what truth is for.
Siddhartha never knew death and suffering, and so the moment he understood it, he had to go out and find it.
Yeah.
So now you must know that curiosity is not without cost. Amalexia, forgive this heresy. Vivek, forgive this heresy. I speak the words in sequence only. Pay heed to the laws of golden masks, but also know their limits. Golden masks would be what? Ordinators? Okay.
Ordinators.
Yes. I agree with that. Sure. Pay heed to so that's the organized part of Almsevi, of the Tribunal Temple, the organization of the Tribunal. Is that the Holy See? Would that be considered would ordinators be considered part of the Holy See of the Tribunal? I'm fuzzy on what the Holy See is.
The Holy See is just now you're testing me on precisely. I'm wanting to say it's a synod, but I think the Holy See is just a term for the Vatican.
Oh, okay.
It's the jurisdiction of the Pope. So it's the personal jurisdiction of the Pope.
Okay, so the actual
it is the Vatican itself and Rome.
So the actual like management and enforcement of the tribunal, is that what the ordinators are supposed to be here? The law of the tribunal? I guess that makes more sense.
Yes.
The law and the enforcement of the law.
The laws of the golden masks. Yep. I can see that. Yep.
Pay heed to the songs of dancing glass.
Buoyant armatures.
Armatures. Yeah, okay, yeah, I was about to say, that's probably the buoyant armatures, yeah. But know also the boundaries of their scale. Their truth is the truth of inertia, of gravity.
I'm not sure why. I don't know what inertia is meant to mean in this sense, because
gravity attraction,
unless it's sort of the idea of attraction, certainly, because you know all the stuff about the founding of the buoyant armatures and their love for Vivek.
You're suggesting here their truth is the truth of inertia is Tribunal as stasis, trying to make a Newick from the Patamaic?
That's okay. Possibly. I wasn't sure when I was thinking about that. I'm not sure about whether that's referring to the buoyant armatures in general, or whether that's
I think it's the whole.
or that's the totality of them both.
That's what I think. I think it's referring to the tribunal in general,
Yeah.
the organization of it.
Okay, so what is it? Let's say, just to rewind, but the laws of the Golden Master, but also know the limits of the law. So this is a point of, yes, know what the laws are and what they're for and where they don't apply. It's the Carl kind of idea of suspending the three laws of robotics in Sunny.
Felix is suggesting that maybe it's the momentum of what is currently considered the truth.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Not a terrible way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. The truth of inertia or of gravity. The stuff that's assumed, the stuff that's done because you've always done it.
Tradition.
Is how I see inertia. But the boundaries of the scale of dancing glass, I don't know why scale is the boundaries of scale is important to buoyant armatures in general, because I don't think I know enough about them to really say.
The boundaries of their scale, this could be the balancing scale of justice, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. No, the boundaries of their scale, or scale could also be the boundaries of, like, their size. Scale is being referred to as, like, the size, the scale of the organization.
Yeah.
The scale
Johnny's
of poetry
asking
thing.
Is scale of poetry thing.
Eh?
I don't think scale is a poetry thing. I think Johnny's thinking meter.
Oh, limits of what they can measure. Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah, I think so, Felix. I think that's a little bit of both. And also, maybe I'm also thinking as a game developer, and I'm thinking like scaling an asset, you know?
Yeah. How big they can make things. Yeah, so the truths of inertia and of gravity. So this is just the way things have always been, and just things that are assumed. So again, it goes back to the whole idea of does not know the lack of oil, does not know the purpose of oil. If you do something the same way that you've always done it, you don't really understand why. And the whole idea of rituals eventually sort of just burning out because their purpose is forgotten, and eventually some eldritch horror is released because no one remembers why the ritual is done, sort of thing.
Back to the Mechanicum again.
Yeah. Yep.
Their hearts are vessels filled with liquid brass, resistant to harm but incapable of movement.
Yeah, because I think this is trying to contrast a different type of faith, if I can put it that way.
Okay.
Because we've just gone through the sort of the valorization of doubt, the ones who must always be asking questions.
Yes. Which the tribunal does not like.
No.
So the idea of so because that's why we're asking for forgiveness for the heresy, is because we're saying you should question the author is saying you should question the truths of the tribunal, but it doesn't work well for them.
No, it doesn't.
Expect consequences. You know?
Yeah, and it's actually using heresy properly, so they get points for that. Instead of just saying any kind of belief that is not us is heresy. No, that's not how heresy works.
Yeah.
But
Dwemer metal not reacting to anything or rusting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that. Also, brass is. I want to say brass is inert. I don't know enough chemistry to know that for sure. But it feels,
brass is inert.
Yeah, like it doesn't react with things particularly. Although that said, brass does tarnish, so there is possibly some reaction going on. Okay, so no, that's wrong. Yeah, resistant to harm but incapable of movement. Yeah, liquid but incapable of movement because metal is heavy. But resistant to harm. Yeah, try and punch liquid and make it stick. That's how I read that. It's just a reiteration of some of the relevant qualities of liquid brass.
The mainspring ever wound spurns that which does not move. In the Nern ensuing, that which does not move shall be fed to the kiln amaranthine, where Set's quiet wrath burns like the sun, and broken cogs are made whole. Well, that's a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So Nern ensuing is supposed to be the new Nern that's going to be created here.
Yes.
Anything which does not move shall be fed to the kiln, where we melt it back down again, which is also the amaranth.
Yes. That's
where Set's quiet wrath burns like the sun and broken cogs are made whole. So okay, so the Nirn ensuing is not the amaranth, but it is associated with it. So is what be are we getting that the Nirn ensuing is created and then anything left over that doesn't work for the Nirn ensuing is fed to the amaranth, to the dream?
Yeah, that which does not move shall be fed. Okay. Yes. Here yeah, in the Nirn ensuing. Yes. So this is the idea that anything that is not part of how the Nirn ensuing functions will be fed to the amaranth. And so the amaranth is or some process that results in amaranth that is distinct from Nirn ensuing, which is that ties in quite nicely with Set's dialogue in ESO, that his own ideas of kind of I only see unsteady walls and want to make them secure. I can't remember whether there's anything in his words, and I need to look them up now. That indicate that he is trying to make them steady so that people can get out. Oh, hang on. I see only unsteady walls. If the people of Tamriel must exist inside this cell, I will make sure the walls are stable, the gaps are sealed, and all who remain stay safe within it. So there's some implication that there will be some who do not remain.
Yeah.
That's how I mean, it's a very, very subtle implication, and I could be wrong that it's there, but...
Well, Johnny's asking, is Tamriel Final the Amaranth? That's a good question. I don't think it is. Nirn ensuing could have been the Amaranth. The idea here is that Nirn ensuing, the perfect Nirn, holds Tamriel Final, which is the best version of Tamriel that can exist on the best version of Nirn. All right.
Or that they're both the same thing.
I don't think that we're going to start talking about Tamriel as Nirn, because that's like, I mean, you're missing a bunch of islands and and etc.
Yeah, but they're both
and a whole other continent.
They're both idealized future states. They serve the same function within the text.
But
as far as I'm concerned,
the way I think it's all the way back in Volume 1. Doing the second Nirn. The thought form that anticipates the world to come, Tamriel Final.
Okay, so Nirn ensuing leads to Tamriel Final.
Yeah, I think the idea here is that Nirn ensuing is Tamriel Final 2. I mean, at this time.pdf. Yeah, that Nirn ensuing is the planet on which the final version of the final release candidate of Tamriel is released. You know, is based. You know, that's yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. Although there is that, and the idea that Nirn ensuing only anticipates Tamriel Final. Tamriel Final is possibly almost beyond Nirn ensuing. So I can possibly see where Johnny is going with this, but the idea that the Amaranth is Tamriel is a little iffy to me.
Yeah, I'm still not really sure how Amaranth fits into this. It clearly does. But I'm just not sure. Like, it sounds that line about everything that is not in everything in Nirn ensuing that does not fit. So the kiln amaranthine exists in Nirn ensuing, or at the same time as Nirn ensuing.
Yes,
it doesn't have to exist in it. It can be separate, which is what I'm envisioning here. I'm envisioning the Amaranth dream on Masser, happening on Masser. And then everything that's not working on Nirn gets chucked into the Amaranth to get reformed until it's eventually ready to go back into Nirn ensuing.
It's another Coda reference then.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's Yeah, Yeah, sets quite rough, burns like the sun. That's mm, yeah, that's I it's a really interesting idea, but I'm not sure there's quite enough there for it. But I don't
Yeah,
know what else to make of it.
yeah. I don't.
And
I'm not suggesting this is a
yeah,
great idea.
no, no. But the idea of sort of the quite rough burns like the sun and broken cogs are made whole. That that almost implies that there's some imperfection in even in ensuing,
Yeah.
that they're having to chuck stuff out and repurpose it. Unless it's again
Well,
going along the ideas of the final purpose of Tamriel and
maybe
that
that's it.
sort of jazz.
Maybe Nirn ensuing is a version of Nirn in which Tamriel final can be created.
Yes.
So, and you do that by checking out all the bad bits into the Amaranth.
Yeah, but
And that allows you to, that facilitates the construction of. This seems too basic. The idea that I'm coming up with seems very primitive, and sort of like procedural.
yeah,
And it doesn't really fit with this sort of the mystical kind of feeling that I think it should
yeah.
have. It feels very procedural, like
That
a
might be
system.
down to how we look at texts.
Okay, yeah, fair, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, because that which does not move. Oh, that's also interesting. That read the idea of that which does not move shall be fed into the kiln amaranthine. What
Mm-hmm.
have we just read about that does not move? That their hearts are filled with liquid blood, resistant to combat, and incapable of
Alexia and
movement.
Vivek.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
this is talking about repurposing the tribunal as well.
Yes.
So
The
that
wheels.
puts a whole new spin on it.
That's a good point. Yeah. So the principles that they uphold and the consequences and the result of their sort of existence, I guess you could say, like
Yeah.
their will has to go through Amaranthine to be repurposed, and all their broken cogs will be fixed. So it says the wheels eternal must spin, the Tamriel final must tick and talk, a Nuvanasi, each must take its place in the whole, for even if one piece is missing, the whole is not whole. So they have to be fixed in the Amaranth before they can rejoin Sotha Sil's perfect, clockwork device.
Yes. Oh. Uh, I've been searching for this for a while. Sorry. I've again going back to the conversation I had with Tuttle.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about how Plato's Republic was a part of informing the truth and sequence.
Okay.
And a large part of that is building a polity from absolute scratch. It's building an ideal political system, political community from scratch. So it's right, you have people. What do they need? They need food. They need clothes. Okay, so what do you need in order to have food? You need to have farmers. And you need to have fields, you need to have agriculture. What do you need to have clothes? You need to have leather, you need to have shoemakers. So what do you need to have those? And sort of builds it up from there with that sort of, and builds what Plato envisions as a perfect society from there, which of course has the philosopher kings at the top.
Pissed me off so much. It's not that he suggested it. It's that everybody he's talking to are immediately just like, oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course we should be running this bitch. Yeah, of course. Only logical.
Yeah.
Dickheads.
But no, that sort of process of sort of building the whole thing out, and bringing that in is what I think is potentially being done here. It implies some sort of process to determine what does and does not move, and kind of building it up again from sort of uh from nothingness almost. But I don't know. quite whether that fits here, but it's something that I think sort of does, but I don't know. I want to have it in the thought mix for future stuff, certainly. Uh, I'm not convinced it's a total match here. Uh, oh, yeah. No, the wheel's eternal. Do we have any other reference the about what they are?
Other than memory from Coda? Nope.
No.
Not that I'm aware, not that I'm aware of. No, not that we've hit yet. This might be
Yeah.
something that gets explained later.
Yeah. Yeah. It's but it's sort of the idea that if there is sort of any need for anything, I mean, what? I mean, it's again, why is there something other than nothing?
Yeah.
Is a fundamental question. Is like, what? Why do the wheels eternal need to spin? I mean, are they part of Tamriel Final? I'm not sure that that's the implication here, but they could be.
I mean, we're all just going to end up sounding like kids. But why? But why? Why did? Why? But
fun.
why?
That's...
Because. Shut the fuck up.
And now, thank you very much. I have the Backstreet Boys in my head.
Oh.
Yeah.
Tell me why. All right.
Exactly.
I have a record. I have some YouTube videos I'll send you of people covering that song in the style of Alice in Chains. It's
Beautiful.
wonderful, wonderful. It's so good.
Yes, it needs to be done. But yeah, the wheels eternal must spin. The Tamriel final must tick and talk. So then there's the idea here that there must be a process that has to happen somehow. The world needs to carry on for some reason. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's if it doesn't, then what's the point of all of this? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the point of the Clockwork City is to create a Tamriel that doesn't end, and that is perfect and unending and peaceful and whatever, or not peaceful. Fucking, we don't know. You know, and that's kind of like but that's pretty much. So what's Volume 4 about? It's about it's a lot about the Tribunal. It's basically saying, you know, I mean, Sotha Sil wants you to question things and explore and have fun, and the Tribunal don't, and we're going to fix that.
Yes, although the end of it does imply that the Tribunal will still have a place in the new reality. That each must take its place in the whole, for if even one piece is missing, the whole
is not whole. Yep.
That you need to still have the Tribunal. That's both a piece of self-referential stuff and wanting to keep some degree of power over stuff, maybe. But
well, I do kind of wonder how much Amalexia and Sotha Sil, how much Sotha Sil and Amalexia agree with Vivek in the idea of like the Sivi being one entity of which they are three separate parts. And I don't think they have to agree on that stuff. I'm sure Amalexia would differ a great deal on a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
You know, but I do kind of wonder, like, I also wonder if it doesn't matter if they agree. Like, I could absolutely see how Vivek, by sheer will alone, could just assert that they are all part of a whole, and then they have to be, because Vivek sort of wins the argument of wills, sort of, you know?
Yeah, it's sort of the idea of they have to be a whole, and they have to be linked, otherwise Vivek is not the master. Because otherwise Vivek is just sitting in a corner all alone and cool kid.
And not being the bridge, you know? And so they have to all get along, and they all have to agree with each other, because Vivek is the one making them agree, you know?
Yes. Yeah, whereas Sotha Sil, there's in this text, at least, Sotha Sil is obviously the primary and the thing that's most important, but obvious that there's still the implication that there needs to be some link.
Yeah, Felix, exactly.
In there, yeah.
Love is under my will only. Yep.
Yes, but I'm still stuck on the notion of whether Sotha Sil needs any others. I mean, if there's going to be any solipsists in the Elder Scrolls, Sotha Sil is probably the best candidate apart from the Dwemer.
Amalexia always seemed like the one who was most likely to be a prepper. You know, like
Yes.
she's like Alexia's solution for the incoming like catastrophe would basically just be like, go to the gym, get hard, collect
Well,
guns. It's gonna suck. Buy a helmet.
yeah.
You know, like that was always sort of I sort of just felt like Alexia's whole thing is like, I'm gonna do my best to keep you safe, but you got to do for you. And
Yeah. Well, that's the whole plot of the Tribunal expansion, basically.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And I just sort of feel like Vivek would spend a lot of time trying to save everybody's ass, and Sotha Sil's nowhere to be found, and
Yeah.
Alexia is building a fort. You know, I don't know. That's just
yeah. At which point everyone tries to find Sotha Sil. Eventually, they find him in this immaculately prepared bunker, and it's like he opens the door, like, what? You didn't know it was coming?
yeah. Why didn't you guys build
it had
one?
To.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sotha Sil wouldn't care enough to argue about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish we knew more about IAM to understand. Yeah, we get IAM in Elder Scrolls Online, but only in a very surface level kind of quest giver kind of thing.
Yes.
She doesn't. She shows up as a Deus Ex Machina in a couple of quests, and that's about it. There's not much of her out there, and it's kind of a shame. She there's a lot to get into. Queen Iron, in my opinion, got more development than Alexia did.
Yes.
I don't think anybody would argue with me on that. It's which is too bad, because I think Alexia's got a huge potential to be very interesting if they wrote more about her. But I mean, I think she could be a lot more than just, you know, the boss bitch, you know, which is what I'm afraid they would do to her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
But if I was writing Alexia, she'd have daddy issues. And yeah, I don't think I would have a very good opinion about how Alexia should be written. I wouldn't trust myself to do it.
No, there's a lot to untangle with her to do her properly.
Yeah.
It's...
So anyway, so that's Volume 4.
Yes.
Only been going about a half an hour. Do you want to keep ticking on Volume 5?
Oh yeah, we can do Volume 5.
Great,
certainly.
let's do 5.
Cool. I know you were clamoring to do 5.
Yeah,
I
was a bit eager. You know, Dwemer are always good television. You know. Speak not of dwarves, child of the Tribunal. Just don't speak not to me about don't even talk to me about the dwarves. This Murray and his dwarves. The simple clockworks of the Dwemer pale before the sublime mastery of Sotha Sil. So this is interesting that he's actually suggesting that the Dwemer use clockwork technology.
Yeah.
Stop comparing me to this. All right. Let Dumac's late lament be a silent one. Let his hissing tomb stay buried. Let his automata rust and crumble. For his was the greatest failure, driven by Lorcan's great lie and churlish pride. Oh, yes, thank you. Like, I will never get tired of the Dwemer because they got fucking conned. Or, if they didn't get conned, then they just didn't... They didn't quite listen properly. It's sort of like...
They screwed up.
Yeah, well, like, if you imagine... Like, I think I suggested at one point or another that... Vorin Dagoth was probably fine to protect the heart of Lorcan, while Umsivi and Nerevar went off to consider how things were going, to do whatever it was that they were doing. Yep. But from spending that much time in proximity to the heart, either the heart, like Vorin Dagoth communicated directly to the heart, which is likely considering he was such a fucking weeb for Dwemer, or you know, and he talked directly to the heart, and then Lorcan does what Lorcan do, which is lie his ass off, just for shits and giggles, or Lorcan tried to communicate the truth to him, but the truth was so massive and complex and insane that Vorin Dagoth's only choice was to misinterpret it.
Yep, I prefer that one.
Yeah, me too. I prefer the idea that Lorcan can't lie from malice. I don't think Lorkhan's simple enough to be considered to do anything like lie or mislead someone, to be a trickster god. You know, I think is underselling Lorkhan as an entity of abstract nature, you know.
Yes.
And fuck those script kiddie dwarves. And so they have like so I like the idea of the Dwemer having exactly the same issue, that they found the Heart of Lorkhan, built a whole culture around what it was trying to communicate to them, but their culture is influenced by by the inability to fully comprehend the message. It would be like if aliens sent humanity a great big fucking message, and we decoded parts of it. Like, you remember Contact, for example? The first thing that they decode is like the transmission on television from Hitler to during the Olympics, right? It was one of the first television broadcasts ever. It was certainly the one that was broadcast with the most amount of juice behind it. And so then they find like all these interlaced frames of data and stuff, and they start finding all this data, and then somebody makes a connection that you actually turn it into like a 3D object, you know, by matching up certain things, and then it creates this big, very complex object which you then view through angles to get like, and they all sort of layer on top of each other, and that gives you the actual content that they were trying to send, right? That's what I'm thinking is that the Dwemer were sort of like they stopped halfway. They only got like a couple of steps in, and then they didn't make that final leap of comprehension, which, to be fair, maybe nobody can make. I mean, you're talking to an Atata, for Christ's sake. Yes. You know, you're talking to this other dimensional being. It's like trying to get cooking instructions from Yog-Sothoth. It just doesn't, you know. There's no hope, right?
Although I almost take it the other way, that this is just an absolute disavowal that that even if the Dwemer do understand everything, then it's not worth following, because this is saying like driven by Lorkhan's great lie. So so as far as this is concerned, the Dwemer believe Lorkhan,
right,
and go along with it, and this is something that should not be done, because Lorkhan's great lie sunders from the truth of Inuic unity and such.
Well, but that in and of itself, I think, is a misinterpretation of Lorkhan's message. You know, I think there's a lot of characters in the Elder Scrolls that look at Lorkhan saying things and they're like, that's bullshit, and you know, reject the message, and then accuse anybody who accepts the message as being, oh, well, you're just believing the messages of a liar. But in fact, again, like, Vivek is unique, relatively speaking, amongst elves, in the respect that Vivek here like got the message and went, oh, okay, this actually makes sense if you squint hard enough, you know.
But it also kind of ties in, now I think about it, back to the lunar Lorkhan. Because parts of that text talk about Lorkhan railing against duality. So there are different spins on what Lorkhan was doing. So
different people interpret different parts of it and then say, well, that's bullshit, and you know, and so on. I mean, you
have the old man and the elephant problem, or the old men and the elephant problem.
And so eventually it gets to the point where you know, everybody's got a different idea, and if you want to get to the actual truth of the message, you have to read between the lines and combine everybody's stuff together, like in Contact. You combine everything together, and then you, So his is a tale of woe and terror, and those that pursue his ugly maths shall pay a great price in blood. So, I mean, once again, this is Lorkhan bad, okay.
Pretty much.
But
also, just a disavowal of Dagoth quite specifically.
Oh yeah, which, I mean, is on point, is on message. Although Dagoth wasn't a thing back then.
No.
But it eventually, you know, Dagoth would show up, and I guess the Torbillions would be like,
Yeah, told you.
Yeah. Yeah. Told you that dude was trouble. Yeah.
Yep.
But Dumac was not a creator, you ask. Were the brass child's hands not covered in oil? Did they not speak the words of making and set wheel to axle? So the brass child, are we going to assume that that's Numidium?
I would say that's Dumac
Okay.
because the idea of hands covered in oil is part of the active creation with gears and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Did they not speak the words of making and set wheel to axle? So, sure, yeah.
This is all creation stuff.
Yeah. Here the words and sequence followers of set intention dictates the worth of a machine. Well, I would differ. I would say whether it works or not.
That's your surface reading. It's going quite deontological here.
Okay.
That it's saying that your intent is what matters. The moral worth of something is what you intended to do when you did it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, to give the example of this for the trolley problem, it gets contrasted with consequentialism. The idea of you've got a trolley speeding down some tracks, or a train speeding down some tracks, and you can either leave it in place so that it kills one person, or pull a lever and it keeps on going and it kills 10 people, or you can pull a lever and it only kills 2.
Right.
But it's the idea, deontologically speaking, because you did not intend for that to happen and so on and so forth, then you are not to blame for the lives of the 10 that will be mown down if you do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If you do something, then you are in some sense morally culpable for the deaths of the others.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of what it's going for. That the idea that what you meant to do for a thing is
your intention,
sort of the driving force behind it, and
mm-hmm.
that has the moral weight behind it. How true that is, it's fuzzy.
Yeah,
in reality.
It sounds like a cultural problem. It sounds like where your laws and culture fall, and which changes even in the same culture, depending on when you're talking about, where the mainspring everwound seeks the convergence of the Nern ensuing, the ghosts of the Dwemer cry out, multitudes, multitudes. Mare and machine parted. Where the mainspring everwound seeks the convergence of the Nern ensuing. Okay, the ghosts of the Dwemer cried out, multitudes, men and machine parted. Okay, so they want opposites. Wisdom and ambition parted. Made and unmade parted. And from those sunderings 1,000 skittering machines are made, left to wander forgotten halls, aimless and profligate. I've kept wanting to say proliferate. That's the only thing that wanted to come out of my face. Yeah.
I'm just curious with that, because the idea of multitudes and multiplicity and many different things is criticized as bad throughout the truth in sequence, and the idea of unity is the good thing. But the Dwemer were trying to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious about whether they're trying to do something else, or whether there's a view of what the difference here is between the unity of the Nern ensuing and the intention of Kagranak, at least, to recombine everything and move up through creational gradients.
So what like everybody here has seen Evangelion, what was Seal, were they good people or bad people? Should we all just be a great big ocean of LCL? I don't know. Like,
I think this is also possibly. Hang on, do we have any reference to multitudes earlier? Brittle multitudes turn to slag in Volume 3. The misassembled dragon whose breath is falsehood and whose name is multitude. So multitudes are within this something that is referring to things that are bad, no matter the source. Like the dragon whose name is multitude, that's Akatosh to me.
Yeah.
And Akatosh has nothing really to do with the Dwemer. So
either Akatosh or
Periite.
Or I was gonna say doesn't T. Perceptum sometimes get represented as a dragon?
Some folk could look up could only look upon Eastmere and see him as a dragon within the 5 songs, I think.
Yeah, not the same thing. Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Just checking.
Yeah. But the but that idea of but the idea of multitudes feels to me just that they're part of the old order. There are lots of stuff to do with the Etarda gears and so on. And so to Deldrise or to this text, the Dwemer are possibly still trying to operate within the same old flawed framework. That feels like that's what that's saying to me.
Yeah.
Whether that's them misunderstanding what the Dwemer were ultimately up to.
Well, let me say this. I'm reading this with the idea in my head that Deldrise Morvain does not actually understand Dwemer.
No. That's
so like I'm considering the possibility that Deldrise Morvain is not a Dwemer expert and is considering the Dwemer from the standpoint of someone who, I mean, she's obviously Dunmer, so is coming culturally from the perspective of a culture that fought the Dwemer and hated their ass, straight hated them. And so every chance Deldrise is going to get, they're going to slag off the Dwemer out of just cultural racism, out of just flat fucking racism. Yes. So the idea of the Sotha Sil AI does say he studied with a Dwemer and based some of his work on theirs.
Yes.
Yes. And so I suspect that that Deldrise may not be actually, intentionally or otherwise, accurately representing what the Dwemer accurately representing the belief system of the Dwemer. This could be just the way this could be just a whole volume of nothing but politic, of xenophobia, you know, tribalism, and so, maybe Sotha has one set plan, but Dwemer more like to learn things along the way and spin off separate plans. Yeah, Felix, I don't think. I think I'm of two minds about that. I think that, I mean, and once again, we're gonna just spiral off into a cast about the Dwemer. Fuck it, just fuck it. I do think that the Dwemer had. I'm of two minds. I think that either they were all very, like, factioned and separated, and they may have even had a lot of internal conflicts. Certainly, the what are they called? Clan Rorken splitting off and going west. Does seem to imply that there was a lot of internal conflict about what the Dwemer were supposed to be doing. At the same time, I also really enjoy the idea that the Dwemer had a great deal of unity. So maybe there may have been a couple of schisms here and there, but I like the idea that those aside, the Dwemer in their separate pockets were very, very, like, unified in their ideas. You know, I have two sort of visions in my head of the Dwemer and day-to-day life, and it's like 50% cult and 50% Travelers Guild or whatever they're called from Dune. You know,
right? The Navigators.
Yeah, the Navigators. Yeah. Very, very secretive, very, very powerful, very exclusive. You know.
Yes.
And a lot of inbreeding. And I mean, hopefully not Hills Have Eyes shit, but, like,
no,
you know,
yeah, but yeah, so you're going to get those sorts of things of we see the truth is this way and carry on, which is actually the way you're describing it is also quite a bit like the Clockwork Apostles in itself. These kind of cultish structures who are going off after their one truth, etc.
Yeah,
and seeing it that way. So it's very much, is this kind of a pot and kettle sort of case?
Yeah, maybe.
So
Johnny points out the Dwemer and Skyrim were very fractured. Their city-states were at war with each other all the time. See? Yeah, yes. That absolutely makes sense to me, that they would be you know, like if they don't have like a centralized government that's running everything, and they are just clans, which like Clan Rorken, they are clan like, then it sort of like fits in a little bit with Ashlander culture. The Ashlander clans were also fighting each other all the time.
Yeah.
It's just the Dwemer did it with like cool tech and underground, and then the Ashlanders did it with, you know, fucking bugs and spiky things.
Yeah.
And from these sunderings, 1,000 skittering machines are made. Read that already. Blah blah blah. One may twist a knob left in preparation for another to twist the same knob right. One may twist a knob left in preparation for another to twist the same knob right. One may loosen a pipe so that another may tighten it. They exist only to maintain the brass children's folly, and so they are redundant and profane in the eyes of Sotha Sil. Well,
they have no progress.
They're not getting anywhere.
They came to no fulfillment, and that's sort of the Dwemer as a whole. And basically, it's the idea of they didn't win, therefore they're wrong.
Right.
Ultimately.
Yeah, the losers, the winners are the ones who write history. Yeah, history is written by the winners. Yeah. But most profane is this: the walking horror that bears the name NM. Well, okay. We're not typing his name out. That's fine. Yep. The Brass Tower of Vanity, the mindless guardian of the Nirn Prior.
Yes.
Prior to the Dragon Break?
No, just the Nirn the Nirn that is prior to Nirn ensuing. Do we have any? I just want to confirm that. Because we have seen it before. In Volume 3, in the clumsily built Nirn Prior, the Etarda gears left gaps and crevices where nothing could take root. So the Nirn Prior, the first is known to us. The Nirn Prior, or Nirn of many parts, it's the Nirn of pieces assembled by the unsteady hand that is yet to find itself. So the Nirn Prior is the current world. So again, this is an opposite to the usual understanding of the Numidium as destroyer of the world. This is saying that the Nirn is the preserver of the current order of reality.
Mm-hmm.
This is saying the Numidium is currently preserving the current order of reality.
Well, the Altmer will suggest that that Numidium is still everywhere, all over the place, and that they're still fighting them all the time. But they're the mirror logicians are still fighting him.
Yes.
So anyway, the antipodal god thing that reigns on the darkest pole of the sacred Nirn sphere. Reigns on the darkest pole of the sacred Nirn sphere, which makes me think of like dimensional spheres. Not necessarily a circular planet, because Nirn is flat.
Yeah, my mind went to the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. Of all the threats to Tamriel Final, Numidium is the greatest. And Uvanasi, the Daedra can be banished in thought, but Numidium must be sundered on Nirn. It is the welded knot at the center of Anu that must be untied. Black pole of the gray, maybe.
Anumidium. Yeah. Numidium as an expression of Anu. This is going back to sort of some of the original puns that came out of the Numidium's thing, that Hoda turned Numidium into something quite different.
Yeah.
I think, but the original sort of conception of linking Anu and the Numidium a bit more solidly, particularly in like Skeleton Man's interview and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of Numidium being linked to creation somehow. I don't know how, because there's so little to go on for it, but it just feels like that's kind of what's being aimed at here. And when I hear the welded knot at the center of Anu that must be untied, I just think of the Gordian knot.
Yeah.
And the idea of no, you don't untie it, you just slice through it.
Mm-hmm. So it's also called the God Puzzle. The mainspring ever wound remains silent on this point, and where there is silence, there is great wisdom. Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
So It's the welded knot at the center of Anu that must be untied.
Unless it's possibly talking to some. Oh, I was about to say because it was originally intended to be powered by the heart of Lorcan. So unless it's linking it to that sort of idea, I don't know whether we want to go down the Lorcatosh rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But uh, yeah, the thing at the thing at the center of the world, and that it's sort of. Hmm. I don't know. I want to say there's some kind of equivalence to the heart of Lorcan here. The whole kind of I'm thinking about it cannot be sundered because cannot be destroyed because it was made to satisfy the world and one connects with that or the other or whatever the words is. But I'm not sure quite where else to go with that. It's a counterpart to the heart of Lorcan as expressed in the monomyth in some way, shape, or form, at least in this formulation. It's the Akatosh counterpart to it.
Yes, what I'm still stuck on the welded knot at the center of Anu. That seems to me to lead to give a little bit of like a cause and effect kind of thing, like that Numidium and Anu. Numidium is the core of Anu.
Yeah, or an expression of it at least,
right? You know,
yeah.
or Anu is reinforced by Numidium.
Yeah, I can potentially see it if we go conceptual and think of ennuic as stasis, which I know is a bad idea. Yeah, but we've been through that. But if we think of it that way, then the idea of Numidium as an engine to go back, as in go back up again, go back up the creational gradients,
Yes.
and to what came before, in some way. It's a sense of sort of retreading steps, but I'm not sure that that's quite what's meant here because I don't want to credit Deldrise with knowing that much about what the Dwemer were actually up to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I'm having to talk myself away from the idea of Deldrise being a reliable narrator.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got this.
To undo Anu would require Amaranth, so that's why they need to destroy Numidium, since one is built by the universe of the other. That's, I mean, yeah, I think that holds up.
To
undo Anu requires so that's what's destroyed. So Numidium is basically something that has reinforced Anu's stasis or the inability to change, and in order to get Nern ensuing to happen, you have to create change, which is being prohibited by this welded knot, this reinforced core at the center of Anu. And if you can undo Numidium, Anu will become flexible enough to allow. Because you can't. I don't think. I'm not suggesting that what's being said here is we need to get rid of Anu, and by getting rid of Numidium, we can then strike at Anu. I'm not thinking that's what needs to happen.
No.
But rather that Numidium has tied up Anu so firmly that now nothing can change because Numidium has spread itself across all realities, as has been discussed by mirror logicians. And so if we can get and that Numidium has to be brought back to Nern ensuing. Or to Nern prior to be destroyed, because otherwise then it won't. You know, it has to be brought back to the place where it has to be thrown into the fire from whence it came.
Yes. Yeah. Which is mildly ironic, given that at least if we're going with Coda, the Numidium was destroyed on the moons, but.
Yeah. Well, there's I mean, I have opinions about whether or not the planets and the moons are considered to be part of Oblivion or part of Nern.
Yeah, I've been down that one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm willing to the most I'm willing to budge on that is that it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Like if they're slightly separated from the Nern reality, but they're still connected, and so I don't really consider them to be outside of Nern. I guess you could say
I would
completely
argue
separate.
that they are outside of Nern, but they're not outside of Mundus.
Okay.
That's my argument.
Well, yeah, and Felix got there too. Yeah, Mundus if not Nern. So so maybe we should think about like Nern prior or Nern ensuing as including Mundus.
Yes. Yeah, it's the whole previous order if you think about it. If we're talking about remaking the Etarda gears, then you're essentially overhauling the whole Aurbis.
Yeah, but you're doing it while the machine is running. You're compiling the kernel while it's in play. So it's, which is not impossible, but don't try it on Windows. So it's just, I think that's the starting. I think Nern prior is starting to make a little bit more sense to me. It's the I feel like some people are a bit looser on the use of terms like Tamriel, Nern, and Mundus than they should be. Yeah. Sotha Sil is a god of fixing it in production. Yes.
Yeah, and Johnny, I entirely agree with you. And the annoying thing is that some of those people are in Tamriel.
Yeah, and some of those people are me previously on casts. So. I would hope that Nern/Mundus is more resilient than Windows. It do break a lot.
there are unsteady walls.
All you got to do is get on top of a tower and dance real good, and you can blue screen that bitch, no problem. That is starting to make a lot more sense. I think things are actually starting to plug together for me now.
Yeah, it's also sort of, I don't know whether this is sort of building to, I don't know whether we can pull the Gnostic card here or not, because it's still the idea of Nern prior and Nern ensuing is still a material thing. You are talking about tearing the world down and rebuilding it, but it's still the world in some sense. It's not a difference in kind, and I think that's something that differentiates this faith from other things. It's still very material in the way that it's being put through, and it is actually quite, now I think about it, quite like the Dwemer in the Azura and the Box sense, that the Etarda gears are not different in kind from the rest of the world. That the gods are not above reproach.
Right.
That they are the things that need to be rebuilt as well as everything else.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That and the fact that we can rebuild them has kind of been proven. Certainly in the case of Akatosh. With Saint Alessia, and with the Marukati Selectives, they 100% tore that shit apart and put it back together again.
I don't think the Selectives are referenced in the entirety of the Truth and Sequence. It would be interesting to see what Deldrise's opinion would be, but I don't think it's mentioned.
I would not be surprised at all if there are entire cultures that don't even think that shit happened.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
CrowdStrike ship 0. Yeah. Exactly. CrowdStrike. Yeah. Oh god, it's so amazing how many people got hit by CrowdStrike. There's small businesses in Massachusetts, like mom and pop stores, that were using CrowdStrike, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. I thought it was just big fucking companies, but like everybody. Anyway. Okay, let's stop here. Or let's not speed all the way into 6 again. We've been doing this for an hour. My back hurts. So let's stop here. Yes. Do you think you can make 2 weeks from the 31st?
I think so, yes.
Okay. The War Within is coming out that week. The new WoW expansion. So I should be available, but
why are you playing that game? They took away your toys. You've already said this.
I did. But you can go back and get them again, sort of in spirit. Anyway, But the stuff that they're covering. Anyway, all right. I'll stop. I'll stop this. Okay. So we'll hopefully see everybody in 2 weeks, and thanks for showing up. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.